Good afternoon. Once again, John Verlin with On Demand Advertising Solutions, another digital marketing update video podcast. And today, got an email the other day from a gentleman named Adam in Fairway, Kansas. And I'm just going to briefly go over it with you, but he ties into some things we talked about in the last podcast. He says, John, I've been catching the last several podcasts. I'm president of a small manufacturing concern and wanted to comment about some of the things you're mentioning and the quote. The quote from Thomas Euler you've posted on your blog. I think he's right on target as far as the quality of content. Just says basically several years ago they were doing some Google pay-per-click to get more customers for their products, et cetera, et cetera. We did well the first year, but it took us constant. I had to hire a specialist come in and tweaked it, this, that, the other, and then suddenly the next year it all just tanked. And I fired the specialist, and after talking to several others, big question mark, and then discovered Google had changed algorithms. I felt terrible, but where do I go from here? Since then, we've done more direct sales, relied less on Google, some social media, and I think and increased our content on our website with a blog. So that's great. Well, Adam, I think a lot of people probably were affected we're all affected when you get a big platform that's in control, start changing things, and all the money you've invested, everything you've done, it's kind of like, well, now what do I do? And I even saw, a few months ago, a couple of tech guys in search engine optimization and all were talking in a blog post, I think it's a year or two old, about these kind of changes. And is this thing dead? I mean, what's going to happen? Everybody was questioning. We can't change what the big boys are going to do, okay? And this isn't just Google, folks. This goes back. Think about when TV came on the scene, late 40s, early 50s. They had, one network? I don't know if it was RKO or NBC or whatever. They didn't have an audience. And this is true with any new medium. They've got to get traction. They've got to get an audience. And that audience can grow, but then you have competition, other networks, et cetera, et cetera. And as that audience grows and is not able to dominate, now keep in mind today we got Google, Bing, and Facebook and all, maybe Twitter, that dominate Instagram for now. But we used to have AOL or whatever, you know what I mean? We've had major players. AT&T dominated the phone industry, things like that. So you can't change who's dominant, but you can control what you do and how you react to that. And that's why content, in my mind, has always been king. It's also one of the lesser things people want to deal with because it's not easy. But what we've tried to do is take that unease out of the equation to produce content in a creative way for clients and for businesses, because believe me, it's tough. And in coming from a radio background, content, the music you played, the conversations on a talk show, everything had to be good or you'd lose audience. And you didn't go on that way very long. So anytime, for another example is when radio stations used to change formats. Suddenly the advertisers who had been with that station for 5 years or 10 years, they're scratching their heads going, now what do we do? Same thing. So you have to adjust to the changes in the dynamics and that sort of thing. And it's always a challenge. You've got to stay on top of things. One thing that worked 5 years ago today may not work at all. But the content part of this whole equation of getting recognized online and being able to promote what you're doing is always been the case from the Ten Commandments on, I guess. Content has always been important in anything, any medium, because that shows the quality of what you're offering and your expertise. Okay, I want to get on with today. Here's some tips, 6 ideas to help your business for next year, 2018, cut costs. Notice this a few weeks ago, Rhonda Abrams had a little blurb in USA Today, and she always has great stuff. She's written a whole bunch of books on small business marketing. But here are some things, just think about. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but just remember, it only takes one idea. Just ask Walt Disney. You go from promoting a rabbit to a mouse, and everything changes, right? First thing she talks about is if you have unused space. I know I have an insurance agent that had a conference room in his office, and he started promoting that space, unused space or very little used space, to his customers or to people on LinkedIn that he networked with. And I almost took him up on it. I was getting ready to have a meeting, and I thought, well, that'd be great. I'll go over to his office and share that space and whatever, and the client would probably appreciate it. So that's an example. But she talks about renting out unused space. Now, if you have extra office space or conference room that's just sitting around, you can rent it on sites like Liquid Space or Pivot Desk. These are a couple of platforms. If you own a retail shop, maybe you have a space like the insurance agent did, a complimentary business space. And you can invite, in his case, inviting customers who could be, it's a great idea because they could end up talking and say, you know what, I'm getting ready to buy another business or getting ready to buy a car. I need to get an insurance quote. And boom, there you go. So it's a great idea. Cutting expenses. And this is, you'd think people would do this every year this time of year, but are you paying for services or subscriptions you don't use? Your insurance, maybe it's time to renegotiate the internet service. Utilities, service providers, they gradually will raise prices, and particularly on long-term customers. Now, imagine that. You're a long-term customer and they start raising your prices. You're like, wait a minute, I'm a long-term customer. How dare you do that to me? Well, the FCC may be about to end net neutrality, so your internet prices might go up. So now may be a good time to kind of check into that. Upselling things. Maybe you just have one price product or service. Well, can you add more that's more function rich, maybe pricier? For example, say she indicates maybe a spa offers 1-hour massages, and maybe they can make more money when they also offer 90-minute massages, hot stone massages, aromatherapy. So what's the equivalent in your business? Think about that you could add on to upsell. Now, separate from that or a part of that could be cross-selling. Maybe you have associated products or services. Well, maybe if you have a spa, you add body lotions, scrubs, candles, etc. Just as an add-on. It's almost like a convenience store. The gas station stuff may have been the original thing, and then they realized, wait a minute, I don't know if it was 7-Eleven or whoever years ago. What if we start selling milk and cookies and da-da-da and have a little mini convenience store? So an add-on could be helpful. The other thing is think about what you're charging for your services. Do you think you're charging too little? Take a look at what your competitors charge. Has it been a while since you raised prices? Could you raise them 5%, 10%? It's likely most people won't notice. You got to be careful with that. I won't go into it, but sometimes, they do notice, and it can make a big difference, particularly with a long-term customer you've had a good relationship with, and they feel like you're, messing with them. One way, in my experience, if you do have to do that or you want to do that, do an add-on bonus of some sort. I have to raise this. However, we're going to now extend the guarantee another year. Something to offset. Otherwise, you risk alienating them. They may start shopping around. Again, with all these new platforms like we just heard about on the scene, they can start shopping quickly to replace you. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword there, so be careful with that. Now, the final one is getting found free. Well, you may or may not be aware, but there is Google My Business. You can claim your business for free on Google My Business, Bing Places, and Yelp. All three of those platforms are free. You just claim your business, and it can get showed. It can show up on search engines, and that's a huge thing to do. I'm surprised how many people don't do this, but they don't know. So those are free. You can do those. And Google My Business, I love it because that's why I show in some of the infographics on my blog, on some of the podcast shows, you show up on that when they type in the name of your business. And that's really helpful for local sales. If you're, for example, you've got a trade area of maybe 10 miles and you meet somebody at a chamber coffee or a fundraiser of some sort, and they Google your business or type it in, the name of it, that will come up. And that's part of the marketing platform I talk about, why that's so important, because the first impression. The second one, now that's a big one because that's on the Google platform, is your website. Because once they click on that link and go to your website, they got to be impressed. Now, the other day I went to a friend of mine's website, actually several I searched for, and I couldn't find them at all. And I was a little shocked, considering they're in marketing. But this is why that's important. I knew both these people, and they've got a lot of experience, but it didn't matter when you couldn't find them. So Google My Business, Bing Places, and Yelp particularly if you have a restaurant or something, is a great thing to use. I'm going to go over some more of these little tips Rhonda had next podcast. But anyway, hope you have a great day. Any questions? John Verlin 12 at AT&T.net. Adam, thank you for your email and your expertise and experience from what you had with the Google pay-per-click, and websites OnDemandAdvertisingSolutions.com. We'll talk to you later.